On our broadcast tonight, President Park Geun-hye replaces 4 senior secretaries in what's widely viewed as part of her efforts to regain public trust following April's ferry disaster. We take a closer look at who they are and what it means. Bank of Korea holds its benchmark interest rate steady at 2.5% for the 13th straight month in June. But where next? And prepare for a joyous yet nerve-wracking football drama as World Cup 2014 kicks off in Brazil. And the Korean football team lands to a hero's welcome. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red roses.
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다.
한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, and noon in Baghdad, and 6 p.m. on Thursday, the 12th of June here in Korea. Hello, this is Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Moon Geon-hye.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. In a shakeup of the presidential office, we knew it was coming. President Park Geun-hye replaced nearly half of her senior secretaries on this Thursday.
Right, the moves are designed, her office says, to push forward with the president's government and economic reforms. Our Choi Yoo-sun introduces us to the president's new secretaries.
President Park has named Gender Equality Minister and former ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker Cho Yoon-sun as Secretary for Political Affairs. It's the first time a woman has been named to the post. The presidential office expects Cho's parliamentary and government experience to help her act as a bridge between the two sides. Ruling party lawmaker An Jong-bum was named Secretary for Economic Affairs. The tax, finance, and welfare expert played a key role in devising the president's election pledges. He is considered the right choice to lead the president's 3-year plan to revitalize the local economy. Former prosecutor Kim Young-han was appointed Secretary for Civil Affairs. Citing his contributions to establish law and order, the presidential office expects Kim to restore discipline in public service and to deliver public opinion to the president without filters. And former president of Seoul National University of Education Song Kwang-yong was appointed Secretary for Education and Culture. The president's close aide will likely be given the task of not only reforming the country's education system, but relaying the president's policies to the recently elected progressive education superintendents. While replacing half of her secretaries with close aides, President Park has confirmed confidence in her chief of staff, who has been criticized for the presidential office's recent series of personnel appointment failures and the government's lax response to April's ferry disaster.
What's expected now is a reshuffling of the president's cabinet. While that announcement will likely come before President Park's overseas trip next week, uncertainties linger as controversy mounts over the credentials of her prime minister nominee. Choi Yoo-sun, ARIRANG News.
Now getting to President Park Geun-hye's second pick to be her new prime minister. He's also found himself embroiled in controversy, just like the president's first nominee did.
Some controversial comments made by Moon Chang-geuk a couple of years ago have surfaced, and they are casting doubts about his confirmation at Parliament. Our Choi Yoo-sun has this report.
During a lecture at his church 3 years ago, Prime Minister nominee Moon Chang-geuk said Japan's forced colonization of the Korean peninsula in the early 20th century was part of God's will to awaken the Korean people. He added God also divided the two Koreas and that if the Korean peninsula had been an independent state at the time, the South would have settled on communism. At a lecture the following year, the nominee put his ultra-right views on display again, saying Korea was able to enjoy economic development by adopting technologies from Japan during the colonial era, adding it was a geopolitical blessing from God. Moon also said Korea's liberation from Japan was not because of the people's independence movement, but rather liberation was granted to Koreans by the will of God. In response, ruling Saenuri Party floor leader Lee Won-gu said he believes the comments were not ill-intended and that the nominee was trying to say that Korea as a nation should learn from past mistakes and move forward. The opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, on the other hand, called the nominee's comments anti-national and outrageous and called on President Park to immediately withdraw the nomination and apologize to the public for another failed personal appointment. Moon Chang-guk's representatives in a statement say the comments were merely being misinterpreted because only portions of the comments were disclosed. 나현경, ARIRANG News.
Let's take an in-depth look into President Park's pick this time around. And to help us with an assessment, Dr. Lee Young-jak joins us via Skype.
Dr. Lee is one of Korea's most prominent political commentators. Dr. Lee, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Let's get right to it. Your overall impression of the president's pick for her senior secretaries today?
Two most important positions, political affairs and the economic affairs. They are long-term associates of President Park. They made a very important contributions toward President Park's elections. And so the economic policies and political affairs will get more tractions and get smoother, and hopefully that they will, because they all former National Congress, National Assembly men, they will have a better relations with National Assembly in general. At least I can tell you the political affairs and economic affairs, they know what President Park thinks, and therefore they can be more effective in communicating with the general public and setting up the general strategy for the passing the necessary laws and more better improve the relations in general. That's what I expect.
Well, Dr. Lee, we have some unfortunate turn of events, back-to-back Prime Minister nominee controversy. Do you think this time, he will be able to sail through the parliamentary hearing and public opinion?
You know, Koreans are very sensitive about our 45 years occupation by Japanese. And I think that Mr. Moon didn't mean what is being taken by the press now, but somehow that was sort of misinterpreted as justifying Japan's occupation of Korea. Of course, I don't think that's what he meant. And so it's a matter of clarification, and I hope that he will be more successful in convincing public that's not what he meant.
All right, Dr. Lee, so what do we see ahead? Do we see, I'm sure we do, but more of the cabinet reshuffling and replacing of her presidential top secretaries in the near future, perhaps even before her visit to Central Asia?
I think her staff, Blue House staff, will not go through any more changes because those four in fact, the 5 replacements are sort of key political implications. On the other hand, as for her cabinet members, there will be some changes, but she is going to wait probably until Mr. Moon's issue is settled.
Okay, we hope for smooth sailing for him as well, and of course all the other changes that's coming. Dr. Lee Young-jak, thank you so much for speaking with us this evening. We appreciate it.
Okay. You're welcome.
Well, a day after the floor leader of the ruling party gave a keynote speech to the National Assembly, it was the main opposition party's turn on this Thursday.
Most of the focus was on the Seoul ferry disaster and on ways to make sure a similar tragedy never happens again. Our Kim Young-gil has more.
Addressing a full National Assembly on Thursday, Park Geun-hye, floor leader of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, called once again for a thorough investigation into April's ferry disaster.
An investigation without boundaries is the order from the people. The very first task for the National Assembly in the second half of the year is to conduct a thorough probe into the Seoul ferry tragedy.
Park made a case for comprehensive reforms in the government and parliament, saying failures in the government system were one of the causes of the accident. She also sounded the alarm about the nation's aging nuclear power plants.
A nuclear power plant disaster is like an atomic bomb. The nuclear industry has been tarnished with corruption scandals, which sets the stage for a major accident like the ferry disaster.
The main opposition floor leader called for anti-corruption bills targeting high-ranking government officials to be swiftly passed at the National Assembly. She said that Korea's bureaucrats have long enjoyed landing jobs after retirement at companies and public institutions, which has contributed to the lax management of safety regulations. Park also pledged that the main opposition alliance would make Korea a better place to live by reducing youth unemployment, household debt, and the growing social income gaps. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
Moving on to other stories, Korea's central bank kept its key rate at 2.5% in June for the 13th straight month.
Well, the bank says it's keeping a close eye on the impacts of the ferry disaster in April. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Concerns over the ferry tragedy in April are spreading as it's slowing down the pace of Korea's economic recovery. While deciding to keep the key rate steady at 2.5% this month, Governor Lee Ji-yeol said Thursday that Korea's central bank is keeping a close eye on whether the ferry disaster will have a long-term impact.
If domestic demand picks up in the near future, I believe the economy will grow as we expected. We are closely monitoring the possibility that the ferry disaster will have a negative impact going forward for a longer period of time.
In its latest growth forecast, the central bank said the domestic economy will grow 4% this year. Based on the circumstances of the outlook, Lee made it clear that any future monetary decision would include a rate hike. Nomura analyst Michael Na, however, downplayed concerns of the ferry disaster and said the current key rate is very accommodative for the economy.
Export has picked up, but recently because of the ferry disaster, it seems like things have sort of halted, but I think that's only a temporary issue.
Na added that there could be a rate hike in the cards for Asia's fourth largest economy, which is heavily dependent on exports.
We do think that the global economy recovery is starting to accelerate, and we think that a timing of a rate hike will be sometime in first half next year.
Now, all eyes are on the central bank's next move in July when it will release a new growth outlook and give a clearer indication for the path of a rate change. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
As the Korean won continues to gain strength, the country's export prices fell to their lowest levels in over 6 years in May.
And our Yoo Ri-yeon says this trend is likely to prevail for the time being.
Korean exporters saw their profitability decline for the third straight month in May as export prices fell to their lowest level since December 2007. The figure stood at 86.8, which is a drop of 1.6% from the previous month, according to the Bank of Korea. That means exporters were earning that much less when shipping out the same amount of products. The drop is attributed to the strengthening Korean won. The won rose 2% against the greenback last month when Korea posted a sizable current account for the 26th straight month. Foreign stock investors also helped push the value of the won higher as they brought the Korean currency to buy local shares seen as safe investment. Experts say the won is expected to keep strengthening against the dollar in coming months, given that the United States has no plan to increase interest rates anytime soon. Even then, they don't see any major decline in the country's exports.
A growing number of exporters, particularly conglomerates, have grown largely immune to currency fluctuations. And research results since 2000 show that the country's exports are not negatively affected by exchange rate changes. So I don't see much immediate impact on exports from a stronger won.
Hall adds, however, it's a different story for export-dependent small to medium-sized companies, whose profitability has worsened since the global financial crisis in 2008. That could signal a widening gap between mid-sized businesses and conglomerates. 유리안, 아리랑 뉴스.
Well, in less than 12 hours, the 2014 FIFA World Cup Brazil will kick off in the capital city of Sao Paulo with the opening game between host nation Brazil and Croatia.
Now, there have been protests and concerns about the completion of the venues, but one thing is for sure, this is one country where they eat, sleep, and breathe soccer. It is, without argument, the most passionate football country in the world, arguably.
Right, and our Song Ji-sun joins us in the studio for an in-depth preview, including a rundown of previous World Cup games, how the Korean squad may fare, of course, in the minds of many Koreans here, and even how the Korean economy stands to benefit from the global event. So let's bring her in. Welcome, Ji-sun.
Good evening to both of you. And before you know it, the World Cup is finally here. The 2014 FIFA World Cup Brazil kicks off at 3:15 p.m. in Brazil local time with the opening ceremony, followed by the opening game at 5 a.m. Friday morning here in Seoul time. Now, Brazil and Croatia will mark the beginning of the month-long football celebration, who are joined in Group A by Mexico and Cameroon. The group stage goes on for 2 weeks starting today, and one match not to miss is between Spain and the Netherlands in Group B, as they went head-to-head in the final World Cup match 4 years ago in South Africa. Now, the Italy-England match in Group D is another one to look out for, along with Germany versus Portugal and Ghana versus the U.S. in Group G games. Now, of course, the home crowd will be rooting for the Brazil to win another World Cup. That's a familiar territory for the Brazilian squad, which boasts more World Championships than any other nations, with 5. They last won the World Games in 2002, which were hosted here in Korea. In the 2 most recent World Cups, European nations have picked up the trophy, so the South American footballers are also eager to bring it back to their continent.
Well, we're going to focus on the Korean squad. They will always be compared to the almighty 2002 legends in their own right. Unfortunately, they're not off to a great start. They don't exactly have a winning wind in their sail at the moment.
That's right. They lost a friendly matches in recent month, 1-0 against Tunisia here at home, and they fell 4-0 against Ghana just this Tuesday. Now, of course, let's take a look back at Korea's performances in the World Cups. They presented with the miracle of finishing 4th at the World Cup held here at home in 2002, but they haven't been so brilliant in other games held overseas. In Brazil 2014, their first match against Russia will be pivotal, mainly in terms of boosting the team's confidence before going up against stronger teams like Belgium and Algeria. Now, based on their best 11 from the latest game, Arsenal forward Park Geun-hye failed again to prove that he could score as a one-top striker in the friendly against Ghana just this Tuesday. But more people are anticipating that the sensational Son Heung-min, who is playing in the Bundesliga, could be the game changer, as well as midfielder Ki Sung-young of the English Premier League's Swansea City.
We're definitely all rooting for Team Korea, but let's shift our focus back here at home. I mean, the Koreans are still reeling from April's ferry disaster, which means it is highly unlikely that we will see a sea of red, although supporters rooting for Team Korea in front of Seoul Plaza, for instance. However, it is supposed to give the Korean economy a much-needed boost, right?
Right, in terms of cheering, as you just saw in the schedule, most matches are held in very early morning hours here in Korea. So it's unlikely to see masses of people gathering around or cheering with their friends at bars drinking beers. But of course, while restaurants and bars may not be benefiting the most in terms of rise in revenue, television manufacturers stand to benefit as people take this as an opportunity to upgrade their TVs so they can watch the games in higher definition in the comfort of their own homes. Now, Samsung Electronics saw a 30% rise in television sales for UHD in May from a month earlier, and is looking forward to a 100% rise for this month. But of course, the official sponsors would see the biggest returns. Hyundai Motor Group is the only automaker among the 6 FIFA partners. The automaker has been sponsoring the world's biggest football event for more than a decade now, and to maximize their return on investment, the World Cup itself must be a hit in terms of viewer ratings.
Both the US and Europe have less than a 4-hour time difference with Brazil. That makes it easier to attract potential market consumers to watch the games. Hyundai and Kia Motors have been launching new models in the US and Europe from March to July, which can maximize the promotional effect coupled with the World Cup.
Now, an analysis by the Hyundai and Samsung Research Institute says that if Korea do advance to the round of 16, the nation can benefit an effect of $1.3 billion worth in brand publicity. But if Korea fails to pass the rounds of number 1, the effect will be a mere $450,000.
Well, Team Korea, again, we do fall hard every now and then, but we do pick ourselves up quite quickly, and we play our hardest when we have our backs to the wall. So I'm hoping we have a good run here so we can continue to cheer until July.
Right, and also so that the Korean economy could actually get the boost that it really needs following the ferry disaster. All right, Ji-sun, thank you so much for the preview.
Thank you.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
We just heard Song Ji-sun saying that TV sales went up in light of the World Cup event, but Samsung is going strong. When it comes to net sales, Samsung Electronics finds itself at the top of the global ladder.
That's right. An annual report from Deloitte, which tracked the sales of 250 global powers, showed that the Korean tech giant raked in about $179 billion in sales around the world in 2012, the second straight year that Samsung came in at number 1. It was followed on the list by Apple with $157 billion in net sales, and Nestle, the world's largest food company.
But let's not forget another Korean giant, which is LG Electronics. It also cracked the top 10 with net sales of about $45 billion. Now, Daniel, do you consider yourself middle class?
I don't know why, but a very inspirational speech made by Lincoln comes to mind. How long should a man's legs be? Long enough to keep him off the floor. That's my response.
All right. Well, according to a new survey, not many people are with you here in Korea, Daniel, because a new survey of 800 respondents by Hyundai Research Institute shows that an ideal middle-class family in Korea, from their perspective, earns about $5,000 a month and owns a house of over 115 square meters in size. And a middle-class family would go out for dinner about 4 times a month and spend roughly $110 each time they dined out, and that did not match the reality of the respondents themselves. Now, their median monthly income stood at roughly $4,000, and they own a house totaling about 70 square meters.
The Research Institute said Korean society needs to close the gap between perception and reality by easing the financial burden from housing and education and expanding cultural and sports infrastructures so that the average Korean can enjoy leisure activities within their limited income.
Right. And on a different note, the 2014 United Nations Public Service Forum Day and Awards ceremony kicks off on June 23rd here in Korea, during which hundreds of people will share their public service experiences.
Organizers said at a press briefing Thursday that the 4-day forum is one of the 3 biggest international events taking place in the nation this year. Around 1,000 participants from some 100 countries are expected to participate. 19 organizations will be awarded for outstanding service.
This year's UN Forum will focus on the theme of innovating governance for sustainable development and well-being of the people. And Korea has been regarded as a leader in public service areas. And this will be a good opportunity for us to promote our national image.
Korea will use the event to tout its e-government systems and new 새마을운동 movement, which has been revived to enhance a community spirit to improve living standards. Well, unusual turn of events on the weather front, and let's go over to our Michelle Park to check the forecast. Michelle, here in the nation's capital, it's been a gloomy day. Is rain on the way?
Good evening, and yes, it has been gray today, but there's no rain in the forecast tonight for the central regions.
But I believe it's been raining hard down south. Michelle, how are things looking right now?
Well, heavy rain still continues there with thunder and lightning, and rain is in the forecast nationwide tomorrow with cooler daytime highs than today. And after tomorrow's rain, our weekend is looking favorable. Except for Jeju Island and Gangwon province, tomorrow we are expecting between 5 to 40 millimeters of rain depending on where you are, and some will even have thunderstorm and hail. Now going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will start off the morning at 17 and reach up to 26 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 28 and 25 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops out at 25, Dokdo at 19, while Mangkungang tops out at 18. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Thanks for that, Michelle. And that's all from us. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Moon Gon-young. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to your day, and we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.